Hi, hello. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has it. Hotline. State Treasurer John Kennedy, one of our favorite guests, is on with us now. John, first of all, Happy New Year, good morning, and all that good stuff that goes with it.
Thank you, Moon. Now, listen, if I slur my words, I'm not drunk. I just had a tooth removed. So half of my face is kind of dead.
If I had to work in the atmosphere you work, I'd have just came on and said, "Look, I'm drunk. I'm trying to deal with this."
It's not a bad idea.
But anyway, John. All right, John. Let's big powwow, big budget talks. They're now leaking all these taxes that are coming. First of all, back up, because there was a report that the budget, we're not bringing in the revenue. Talk a little bit about that first, where we really are right now with our budget and the amount of money coming in. We're halfway through the year.
The budget's in bad shape, Moon, but I don't understand all of Governor Edwards' numbers. For example, last night I read the 200-page briefing paper that he gave the legislature. They talk in there in one page about how this fiscal year we have an additional $750 million deficit. Now, that's after closing a $500 million hole in November. I don't understand where they're getting the $750 million, and they don't explain it. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying they've got to explain it. The other thing that I noticed in their 200 pages of briefing papers, I didn't see any time, not one single page, devoted to reducing costs.
Spending.
It's all about raising inventory tax, raising sales taxes, going back to Stelly, changing the corporate income tax, charging an extra gasoline tax. It's all about taxes.
Yeah. And John, by the way, they mentioned very bluntly in the papers spending, but as I told somebody, so they cut $500 million out of spending, but they had $3.5 billion. There's no spending cuts, John. If the answer is more revenue, and you, let me tell you, I was at church this weekend. I told the audience, and the pastor made a lot of sense. It ain't about what you take in; it's how you spend it.
That's
and
right.
It's like that in Baton Rouge too. It's not exactly what they take, because I think you would admit it's been about a $5 billion increase in spending over the last 8 years. So there's revenue coming in.
You can't govern without the consent of the governed, at least not in America. And I don't believe that until Louisiana state government shows it is serious about reducing our spending, I don't believe the people in Louisiana are going to support all these massive tax increases that I keep hearing about, nor do I believe that the legislature will go along. If they do, without spending any time on trying to save money, shame on them.
Yeah, well, you say that, John, but sometimes people don't even know what's going on. It's not a cut on them. I mean, I don't know everything going on. I wish I did. And then you find out when it's too late, when you already have less take-home money, or when you file your taxes, you have no more deductions. And that's when it gets hit. That's when it comes to real people. Let
me give you an example, real life. I was talking to the president of a company, Louisiana company, last night. He's in the maritime industry. His large ships service offshore oil and gas. He's losing money every day. He just had to lay off 700 people. He said, Kennedy, if they raise the inventory tax, like I think they're going to do, it will cost me $10 million a year. I will have no choice but to move to Houston. He said, I'm gone. I'll move the headquarters, and I'll move all the boats. I won't want to. He's a Louisiana guy. But he said, I can't, when I'm losing money every day, I can't pay $10 million more in taxes. And when all I got to do is move over to Houston and not pay it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
That's going to happen a lot, Moon,
John,
if they don't think this through.
I know a company. It's a decent-sized company, hundreds of employees. Obamacare is costing them $400,000 a year extra. The inventory tax, the 28% they took away last time, that's 72% more they could take away, cost them almost $300,000. He's $700,000 in the hole in one or 2 years. So that's real money to me, John. That's real money to companies that are trying to grow and expand and get pay raises and all that kind of stuff. You can't do it. And I'm scared these tax increases are going to send people flying out of here or making businesses contract. And I don't think they're thinking about that. They're only thinking about state government. Remember, we just had an election, too, John, where they got this problem of $750 million problem and a $2 billion next year. But don't forget the promises that were made to people that we were going to put more money into education, this and that. Education's higher ed's asking for $1.7 billion.
We don't have it, man.
That's what they're asking for.
Not unless they raise taxes massively. But you hit the nail on the head. The folks at the state capitol are focused on the very narrow issue of how can we get more money in to balance our budget.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got to step back and ask, well, why are your revenues down? The reason the revenues are down is because big portions of our economy are in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
Oilfield services, the maritime industry, oil and gas exploration. If they try to tax industries that are already flat on their back, they could have they will have a very detrimental impact.
Let me ask a question, because we got one of the highest unemployment rates in the country now. I think we're fourth.
We've also got one of the highest spending rates in the country. We're ranked number 10 in America.
Yep.
When you in state and local government spending per capita. Number 10.
Wow. Well, I think in the South, though, John, I think we're number one by far. It's one or two, but we're number one. I think we're number one by far. Paul Hurd had the numbers. I'm going to have to call him back on doing the combination. You said the nation, but if you just take the South, we may be at the very top, but yet they're telling us we don't have enough money, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
We may be in the South, but I was looking at the numbers last night for the nation. You have to add state and local governments expenditures together because in some states they deliver a service at the local level, in another state they do it at the state level. So you have to add those two together, and when you add state and local expenditures in Louisiana, we rank number 10 in America. It's hard to argue that we don't have enough money with the spending that we're doing.
Well, John, I want to know whose fault this is. And when I say that, not name names. We can look at Jindal, but you got a legislature. We returned 80% of them. They had a chance to do something last time. All they did was kick the can down the road. They put 600 to 800 million new taxes on us. Some of that was temporary. A lot of it was. Some of it we think were unconstitutional. So where do they go now? Look what they did last session.
Well, a lot of this problem started, not all of it, Moon. A lot of this started, 5-6 years ago. Remember when President Obama passed his stimulus legislation? Mm-hmm. Gave billions of dollars to the states. I know some people think, because there were some folks in government who said we're not going to accept the stimulus money. Well, we did accept the stimulus money, somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 billion. They took that money and dumped it into the operating account.
Oh my God!
And of course, it was spent, and then the stimulus money stopped. But the programs on which the one-time stimulus money was being spent continued on. And frankly, that's a big part of the problem. If you look at health care, our Medicaid program has gone from $5.8 billion in 2008 to right around $9 billion today, if you count the overhead at DHH. That's huge number of new people there. And frankly, we have spent a lot of extra money in elementary and secondary education.
Yep.
The minimum foundation program over the last 8 or 10 years, I don't remember the amount, but it's been a healthy increase.
John, I want to throw this out. Governor Edwards signed into law, executive order, we're going to be on the Medicaid for 300,000 more people. Now, my question to you is, so people will understand, and they also said that would Jindal turn down $3 billion? But am I wrong to say that if Jindal would have took the $3 billion in Medicaid, didn't we have to put up $1 billion or $1.2 billion to get the $3 billion, so we would be even deeper in the hole? Am I wrong by saying that?
We don't have to put up that much.
Okay.
President Obama is saying if you join the Medicaid portion of Obamacare, he'll pay at least 90%. Well, the Governor Edwards is going to join it with no strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see him, if he's going to do it, at least put a provision in there that says if the federal government doesn't hold up its end of the bargain, we reserve the right to get out. Because anybody who thinks that the federal government always keeps its word obviously failed history class.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to put in a provision that allows us to try to control the costs of these hundreds of thousands of people that we're going to add to the Medicaid rolls. We can't control the cost right now in the Medicaid program.
Mm-hmm.
We're spending $9 billion, including the overhead at DHH. If Medicaid costs go up 5% a year, that's $450 million extra we have to come up with before we even turn on the lights.
By the way, let me do this. I'm going to take a break. I want to come back and ask you unaccrued liability. I'm sure they're talking about taking money and fixing that, too. John Kennedy, my special guest, our state treasurer, dealing with the budget. We'll take a break. Be right back. By the way, advice number 732 for you. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show, but if you ever repeat that, I'll call you a liar. 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. John Kennedy, state treasurer, the great state of Louisiana. John, unaccrued liability. I know our good buddy CB talked about this a lot and talked about the debt, and it doubled under the general's watch with the same legislature, by the way. Out of all this talk that you're looking at, anybody talking about the unaccrued liability or the debt that we've run up?
No.
More spending,
and the unfunded accrued liability, of course, is just the deficit in our retirement system at some point. It's what's called a soft liability. It doesn't create a crisis today, but at some point, I mean, the taxpayers are going to be asked to pony up, and it's about $20 billion and rising. We have depending on your perspective, we have either underfunded or overpromised in our pension systems, and that's why they're running deficits.
Probably a little bit of both, if I had to bet.
It is a little bit of both.
John, the big concern on these taxes is the unintended consequences. I got to tell you, because you don't see anybody talking about spending, then they really believe, lawmakers, and like you've always said, got a lot of good people, a lot of nice people down there. You're not saying that. But if they don't consider real spending cuts to meet the needs, and everything is revenue, we'll never get it right, John. They won't even have a chance. You can give them $2 billion today, reoccurring, and you know good and well they'll find a place to spend that money. You just talked about the money that came in from Obama that wasn't reoccurring. We put it in there and created this and created that, and we don't have the money for it anymore. So my deal is you can give them $3 billion. Give them $4 billion. Now, that may work for the governor to be reelected, but somewhere along the line, without taming spending, you're not going to fix the problem.
Not until you get control of your spending. You're right. And I don't think this economy can take a bunch of massive tax increases, particularly after last spring. As you know, they raised taxes by $800 million. And now the deficits, according to Governor Edwards, are bigger than ever.
But why do they act like, including the governor, including Edwards, including Taylor Bowrow, why do they act like they're surprised by this? You're not. Our good friend CB wasn't. I'm not.
No.
Why are they surprised about this when they were down there? They created it. John, look, I said, whose fault is it? Without naming names. It's not mine. But then again, everybody elected these people. So when they get elected without anybody running against them, or they beat somebody that's unknown 80-20, they think they're doing their job. They go right back down there and do the same thing.
Well, Governor Jindal gets most of the blame, but you know, he didn't pass the budget.
Nope.
He proposed the budget, but the legislature passed the budget. That's the only entity that can do it under our Constitution.
Yeah.
So you're right. This business of, we're shocked. I don't see how anybody can be shocked. They were there. They voted for it. They voted to do it.
Danny Martini said he said we have a spending problem. He said this is the biggest I've ever seen since I've been here. And I want to go, Danny, how many budgets you voted for? I went back and looked. He voted for 8 out of 8. Governor Edwards voted for 5 of the 8 budgets. John Alario voted for 8 of the 8 budgets. Taylor Barra voted for all the budgets. I'm just using their names. I don't know Taylor. I think he's a great guy. But what I'm saying is they vote for this stuff over and over again. They look up and say, man, we don't know what to do. We just got to. They make the mistake and we pay. I don't understand that, John. If you make a mistake with your finances today, I shouldn't have to cut you a check. If I make a mistake with my finances, I might have to cut a check.
Doesn't work that way in my family or in any business I'm aware of.
But
and look, here's the issue, man. What we need to be concentrating on right now in state government is not tax fairness or tax reform or revenue enhancements or all the fancy expressions they use for raising taxes. We need to be addressing one issue and one issue only. How can we lower our costs, lower our spending, while still being able to deliver to taxpayers a decent product?
Good point.
And if we would do that for the next 6 months to a year, we could save some money, and taxpayers would have a little confidence in the folks running state government. I mean, but the people of Louisiana are not. I don't care what anybody who's drank the Kool-Aid at the state capitol believes. The people of Louisiana do not believe we have a revenue problem. They believe we have a spending problem and a waste problem.
John, will we see, and this is an issue, you're going to have to stay up on it. I know you did it lately. CB was on it too. NGOs, non-government organizations. How many hundreds of millions or billions are they going to continue to get?
Well, we're just going to have to monitor it. I mean, we don't have the money to do any of that, but they persist in funding a lot of that stuff, and that contributes to the fact that we don't have any money to do the things that we ought to be doing.
Yeah. Wow. It's one of the things that we're going to have to continue to watch and keep up with.
But I can tell you, if we add 400,000 people to our Medicaid rolls, I don't want anybody to die. We're compassionate in America. If you need a doctor, we'll pay for it. But we've got to be mindful of the costs. If we add 400,000 new people, that's about $2 billion of extra spending a year. Yes, the federal government says it'll pay for most of it for now. But we're going to wake up in about 5 years, and we're going to be spending between 60 and 65% of our budget just on Medicaid.
Yep, good point. John Kennedy, State Treasurer. John, always a pleasure. We hope to hear from you a lot.
Thanks, man.
God bless. State Treasurer John Kennedy. And now your calls are welcome, 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. If you want to be a voice, it's your turn.